Howdy everybody, how y'all doing? Well, now that I finished watching all these 8 episodes of Amazon's Fallout, well, I got a few more things I want to say. A few more reflections and maybe address some of the things I posted in my last video to tell you if I still think that's true now that I finished the whole season, or if I've kind of let the story show me a little bit differently, right? And there will definitely be spoilers, so if you haven't watched the show yet and you're planning on it, I would say pause and come back to this, because I want to talk to you like you've been able to watch the show, formulate your own opinion, and just want to have a conversation, right? There's no right or wrong, it's just entertainment, right? Or something. Anyway, let's get right to it. Okay, so as I said in my first review on the first 3 episodes or so, we introduced our characters, and I definitely felt strong connection to the Wizard of Oz. And I still feel that way, right, on the whole. I feel that Lucy, aka Dorothy, or vice versa, definitely holds up to she would have been happy living in her vault in Kansas, and then, a storm came and took her dad away. And then she had to go wandering around in this unknown world, and I still stick to the fact that Maximus is going to be our cowardly lion, right? We learn later in this show that maybe he didn't actually stick the knife in the boot, right? Because his friend spoke up and said that they were scared, right? But I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't tell if it was that the direction was to make it seem like the friend was covering for him, or if it was just the acting wasn't convincing that the friend was covering for him. Either way, I'm not convinced that the character was actually scared or not, right? It's one of those catch-22s, so I'm gonna leave that up to there. That the friend saw something in Maximus that they wanted to not be the one in the spotlight, right? Not anymore. Okay. And then I definitely still believe that the Ghoul is our Tin Man, because just like the Tin Man who needed oil, the Ghoul needs some of that inhaler or whatever that is to keep him from going crazy and ravaging and eating everybody, right? And I kind of alluded that a little bit in the first video, but I don't think I said it quite the way I meant to. He's got the straw hat, but he's definitely the Tin Man. But also in the way that the ghouls seem to deteriorate every time they're injured. Like when they regenerate, they just don't come back quite the same. So it kind of makes me think of a scarecrow too, right? Yeah, big, bad, and scary. And he needs his oil to survive. Okay. And I definitely still stick to Ben from Lost being the wizard, the disembodied head, because apparently he knew everything, right? Apparently he knew all about who Lucy was, what vault she was from, and what she was raised in, which we later found out why. We later find out that in this Amazon world built by Bethesda, that these vaults were designed to let rich companies invest in the future and do whatever they want down in the vault. Vault-Tec didn't care, because Vault-Tec was the evil corporation, right? And we'll get back to that soon. So, like I said, Ben was a wizard, and he knew everything. Clearly, dog meat is Toto, right? I mean, maybe that's a stretch, but I'm going for it anyway, because you gotta have a dog. Yep. So, alright. One of the honorable mentions that I did not get into last time was Moldaver, because I really didn't know what she was yet. I mean, I kind of alluded on the thumbnail that she was the Wicked Witch of the West, that she needed to be get water dumped on her so she would melt, right? Okay. So she was definitely the villain of the first arc. But then we learned through the next 3 episodes, 5, or I guess 4, 5, and 6, right? Is that maybe there's more to her. Maybe she's a relatable villain, right? Maybe, when she says, when she goes to, when the ghoul guy goes to the meeting, and he's like, "Aren't you that thing, that word? Part of the suffix club, if you will?" And she's like, "No, that's just the name they give people who make sense, right?" Okay, that's a confusing, cringe line. This goes back to the fodder from episode 1, right? Just things thrown out to the audience to get them all riled up, to say this is woke, this is confusing, blah blah blah, right? The whole McCarthy scare-ism, because they're stuck in the 50s. I don't know. I feel like it works for the trope, but I have some issues with that continuity, right? Okay. So, like I said, I thought that she was just the Wicked Witch of the West, but then I find out that she's an engineer, and she's been working on this sustainable power, this fusion core thing, this whole thing, and I'm like, oh, she's the female Tony Stark, right? She is the race and gender swap of the person that was building this thing. But then I was like, wait, if she's trying to get it back, does that make her Ironmonger? Like in, Jeff Bridges' character from the original Iron Man, I understand there was a comic book, but I'm just going with live action adaptations, please. Please don't get mad at me for this. And so, right, I was thinking, maybe she's Ironmonger. Maybe she's just trying to steal the power for herself, right? But then she created, so that's confusing. So, I kind of had to think about this because, well, apparently Vault-Tec are the bad guys. We learn in this really, really confusing dichotomy of a happy-go-lucky 50s style aesthetic, and you get your McCarthy scare, right? And then you've got all this fighting on the global front, and then, of course, there's a big company, enterprise, corporation that's gonna want to make sure they earn their investors money. Okay, investing in the future by destroying most of the world and allowing other big companies and investors to buy vaults that they can do whatever they want in. They can play like gods in their own little world and see what happens, so that in 200 plus years, when the vaults open back up, they can reclaim the world. Like, that sounds terrible, actually. Because if they're afraid of factions in the current day of the show, before they drop nukes, who's to say they're not going to have isolated factions just from the vaults themselves? Not even to count all of the Ravagers or people on the surface that survived. All in all, it's a terrible plan, and it's a really dark idea and bleak future that people would just destroy everything without batting an eye. I just want to put that on the table. It's fiction, but it's very depressing, and I don't think humanity would actually do that. Not in that way. They're greedy, and there's power-hungry people out there, but I think somebody would think of the consequences, I would hope. Be a little more diabolical. Or something. Anyway, okay, so, right. Then, when we get to the last scene, right, where, or the last bit where, Hank is, Lucy's dad is got the power armor, and he's jumping off into the sunset because, he's going off to find more things, right? Well, Then I realized, him and Vault-Tec, that's Ironmonger, right? Cool. That analogy's complete. So, back to the Brotherhood, right? I feel like this is another one of those tropes that they just threw in there because up until the last battle, they do seem like the awkward guys, right? The Suffix Club, right? The Ists, whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like the nerdy guys who don't know how to talk to women. Until when they're storming the castle, the observatory, then apparently all their training kicks in, and you know, they work as a more cohesive team. Except for kind of not, because apparently the ghoul, who's had military experience 200 plus years in the past, knows the weak spot, which kind of is a callback to a conversation of an earlier episode, which is kind of a, I don't know, ghoul in the machine, not so much God in the machine, if you get my drift. So, it kind of worked itself out in a cheesy way, right? And apparently, the ghoul won the fight between the Ravagers and the Brotherhood, right? And one thing I'll also add is, you know, at first I kind of thought that all Vault Dwellers were just these cheesy, sheltered people, you know, but it turns out through Vault-Tec and selling all these vaults to different companies, well, as sheltered as they were, not all of them were the Dudley Do-Right type. So, like I said with Lucy's brother, when he went to the Vault 32, the whole allegory of the cave thing showed up, right? And he was changed and he could never be the same, obviously, because he's trying to find answers now too. Yeah. So, all in all, I think the show was pretty fun. I understand that there's a whole lot of retconning in the last scene, kind of probably made a lot of the fans upset because of retconning New Vegas and what the crap's going on, and you know, the whole behind the scenes of Bethesda trying to show that, you know, they own the franchise now, right? I'm curious to see where this is going. Other than the 7th inning stretch, which I'm gonna call it, where we have this whole seance and chanting over Moldova, because I don't really get that, and that doesn't really make sense in the continuity of the whole thing. Like, I don't really see anybody else worshiping her. They're just following her like a leader. I don't really get how the whole cultist religious sect thing connects to the whole story at all. Except for that vault was just weird, right? That vault was just weird. And Lucy got to splash some acid on somebody's face, kind of like throwing water on the witch. So that trope was not lost on me either. So thank you guys for putting that in there for Amazon. All in all, it was a pretty fun show. Like I said, I can definitely see why people would rush to call it woke and terrible. But I also can see how a lot of people out there actually, if you sat and watched the show and let the non-linear storytelling, which I think was done fairly well, like the pacing was slow, but it kind of told you what you needed to know eventually. And I think it was, like I said, a good use of non-linear storytelling. Kind of like Lost. Yeah, I said it. So many callbacks. So anyway, I'm curious to see what they'll do with Season 2. And I probably won't go play any more Fallout games because an hour of Fallout 4 was about enough for me. But who knows? Maybe I'll try New Vegas because it seems to be the fan favorite, right? Well, and also, this show is pretty gory and bloody, so if you don't like that sort of thing, or if you didn't realize that was in the games, it might not be for you. For all you else out there who've watched the shows and sat with me this long, appreciate y'all being here. And let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye!